e pā e tō mātai matua nui te rangi tū uri whā io. Ho ia tau o kia whakamoe mititia kōkoe ka tika, kia whanui ara kōkoe ka tika a e pā. Whakaronui anō rā ohou kia tata mātau i te ao i te pō putāti anō ki rutu ki te ineira. Whakaarora wahoki rā i a koe ngā tūāhuatanga katoa puta i te ao tonu i te pō. Ngā tūāhuatanga pātuai i te pō nā o mātai whanaunga i te uru ki āhia i e rā wāhi katoa tonu putāti ki te toi matua, te Hawaii ki toi matua, ki reira tonu etahi anō te whanaunga, pō nā tonu atua i roto te pakanga, i roto te whawhai, i roto i niwa. Whakaaro noa ke tonu anō rā i a koe i ngā tūāhuatanga katoa, puta i te moko ko puta i te wā kāinga. E no reira nā e pā i te nui o tōu aroha. Nui tonu anō o te whakaaro whakaharahara, whakaaro whakahirahira anō kia tātou. Tonu kia tātou mātou putanua. No reira whakamoe miti, whakanui, whakawhētairawa, ai tā i hiuhi. Mene, ka piti hono ka tātai hono ko rātau mātonu anō tērā rātau i waiho tonu mai anō ai i te taonga tiku iho kia tātai mātau. E te kānuhi ora, kia tātai mātau e te kānuhi ora, rātau rā ki te mate kia rātau, ki te wāhi tonu rā kia rātau, i whakatauiratia tonu ai rā kia rātau. Haere ki te pō nui, te pō roa, te pō tango atu ki a koutou. Haere, whakauti atu. Ka piti hono ka tātai hono, tātou mātonu anō, tēnā tātou e te kānuhi ora, kia tātou mātou koau. Kai te mihi atu, nau mai haere. Tēnā rā tātou, mauri ora. Kahuri, kia ora, good to be back again, this time in TeTaiRawhitiAukatiTai. A little bit nerve-wracking. I'm back on the other setup again. Of course, last week we didn't see it till after the video screening had been done last week. We realised that we had our cyber criminals were back again, and we got a lot of interference in last week's, but you could still pretty much get the gist of all the kōrero that was going on there. So much kōrero. A little bit nerve-wracking like this. I'd rather the other setup, but just so that we can do away with all the interference, I'm best to try and make do with this for today. And for TeTaiRawhitiAukatiTai. Of course, as usual, we were going to film from within the OureeEKomao, but at TeTaiRawhitiAukatiTai. But I decided, we'll start rolling from here. We'll start the screening from here, from on the Ariki page, and forward it to there a little bit later on. A little bit nerve-wracking like this, because you can't sort of tell It's the volume. You can't sort of tell volume levels. I've tried to work volume levels and all that sort of stuff from this sort of setup. Sometimes even my screen goes small. See, it's gone small again, and I don't know why. That's what I was looking at before. And even while I was starting off there, it was a little bit hard to tell whether I had my screen set up properly, or whether I wasn't quite set up properly at all. But this is the best way we can battle the cyber criminals out there that are trying to interfere with our kōrero. Our kōrero is too good. Our kōrero is too valuable, and when it reaches our people, and it always does, cyber criminals and opposition that can't handle it, they get a little bit jelly, so they try and interfere. And that's sad, because our kōrero is important for everyone, not just us. Let's not forget Tahu Trust, Tahu Investments Limited. That's our organisation, our iwi authority, our Hapu iwi authority, if I can put it that way. And just to explain, because I've had questions on that, a lot of people go, oh, well, you shouldn't be calling it iwi. I said, well, yeah, what I laugh about is a lot of these sorts of people, they try to instruct you on how to term things and stuff like that. They don't realise that I'm a native speaker of the reo. I'm a native speaker of our reo, of our super tribal reo, and am on kōhatu, so I don't really need instructions like that. And I know that I use the term hapu iwi, but that helps to give us a more concise explanation and description of exactly what we're talking about when we talk about hapu. So there'd be no use us just using the word hapu like back in Te Ao Kōhatu. You know why? No one would understand really what we're talking about. Okay, they all sort of know the word hapu. As soon as you ask someone to translate that word, they translate it as sub-tribe. And that's not true. Hapu doesn't mean sub-tribe. A hapu, and in the form and structure that we're talking about, because Tahumaakaakanuimatua is a hapu iwi, or a state, or a nation, or a tūturu people. That's what we're describing here. And the best way to do that is to use the phrase hapu iwi with quotation marks. Okay, iwi with quotation marks, because iwi, as we already know, I've explained that so many times before, iwi is a slang word, a slang term from 1769, between then and 1790, that we started to use in the country amongst Tahumaakaakanuimatua people to describe a state, or a nation, or a tūturu people. And that's what we are. That's what Tahumaakaakanuimatua is. And not only that, but we're the primary one of TarKH and Heretaunga Wairua. Today we're talking around the Heretaunga Wairua district, Hawke's Bay province, and we're looking to update there. That's our first lot of kōrero there. There's a lot to wrap up still in Wairarapa. We don't want to have to call the general in. It's a bit hard working like this, because it's a little bit nerve-wracking. So if I seem a little bit nerve-wracking or a bit off, or if I make mistakes, or if you see me trying to fiddle around with dials, then you know why. Because it's a little bit of a it's not dodgy, it's just a bit technical. So a little bit of a technical setup we've got going here, and you're probably even looking at me from a different angle, and I've noticed the angles on this setup, and they're a little bit different, so I look like a whole different person with this setup, and sometimes the volume doesn't come through, so I'm hoping I'm coming through loud and clear. I seem to have volume dial set right, so we should be okay, and I'll try not to shout too loud right through the kōrero. But this is a good way of battling the cyber criminals who want to interfere with our kōrero. So we've started off just going on to 12 there, and we'll try and work through as best as we can our whole kōrero for today. And it's a shame that I'm going to come across as a little bit nerve-wracked sometimes, because actually we're quite the opposite. We're very, very, very relaxed, very humbled, and very, how can I put it? Well, we're in good cheer. We're in good cheer. We're quite happy with everything the way it's going. Because in Hawke's Bay everything seems to be going quite happily, and everything's looking good. There's still no opposition to a Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlement right across Hawke's Bay, and even the boss of the Kahungunu people is quite adamant that they're all for Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and they're going to be consenting to going under. So with all of that kōrero intact there, what the gist of our kōrero today and the update's going to be. So it's pretty, how can I put it? It's pretty positive. It's going to be quite a cheery and good report for today in the update. So, but yeah, we're waiting on Wairarapa Taradua. We're looking for Wairarapa Taradua to complete. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks we get that sorted down there. We know that they have a desire to go under, but whether they're going to do that officially, we don't know. But let's remember, they've actually got no choice now, because we've brought the General of Great Britain, the British military, and we've got him, and we've got the British Navy off the coast there, still out at sea, patrolling out about 300 miles out. And ready to come in at a moment's notice. If we have to move kahunu rangitane from Wairarapa Taradua, we can do that quite easily, physically as well. Okay, and so we understand we may not need to do that, and we understand there may be compliance, and we also understand that the Crown has already agreed to comply. Okay, so we're just waiting on the tribes there, Kahunu and Rangitane. I'll keep you up to date with how things are going. Today also was going to be the day. I know last kōrero last week for the North I talked about the whakatapu. Now the whakatapu e Tauma we called off, so we've ruled out altogether. But I did say that that was going to be operated again on a Wednesday night. Now, that's not true. It's actually set for tonight, so I had my days wrong. I was a little bit muddled up, I would say. And so we got our days a bit mixed up. I think I was thinking about something else at the time. I have very important hui on Wednesday, so it was likely to be one of those hui. Look, the whakatapu, as far as we're concerned, is still out, because there's no urgent issues. There are no take with kahungunu rangitane at the moment, and even the cheeky ones that have been up there lately, they backed it up. So everything's looking good, it's looking positive, it's looking peaceful. And it's looking like we can start to get our traditional unity aspects and concepts working really, really well in the Hawke's Bay area over these next few weeks. So What we may do is put a time limit for over the next couple of weeks for kahungunurangi tāne of Waitarapatara to pack it up, go under and hand over the settlement of Waitarapatara. Well, we don't think we'll need to do the same in Hawke's Bay Wairoa. We could just suggest that, just one of the major reasons why we did that in Waitarapatara is because we're sick of the muck around. They've been mucking around like this, last 15 years. Just to get it all sorted and over and done with. That's why we brought them in, and plus we gave them no choice. And they needed that because, I don't know what it is. I think in Waitarapatara there's such a lack of mātauranga in the area of a lot of our traditional concepts, and so it's not just in the reo where they're struggling in Waitarapatara, but also bit of an itchy nose there, but also in many other areas in Te Hatu, it's quite a difficult thing to work with, especially when you're trying to work with them and you are, when you are Tutura and you are Hatu and you're working in that way all the time. And every time you work with them in that way, all you get is sort of this deafening response of, we don't really know what we're doing, but we're going to do something. And what's been quite ongoing with those groups is that the something that we got, the responses that we got all the time were trespassers over our tūturutanga within the region. And so that was really sad, having to work with them in that way. And then at the end of the day, takataka hi katoa rātau ia mātau, ia Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay, so not just sad but dangerous and very, very hurtful, and that's why we would always come back and respond again, sometimes very angrily, sometimes with elements of the law, instruments and componentries of the law, like the whakatapu, that gave you no choice but to comply. Again, we've applied something more. The whole of the mana of Westminster and us in alliance with our tūturutanga within Waitarapatara and our native title e Tatauma. We now have taken full control of everything and control of their response, which is total compliance or nothing and gone. Let's not forget it, Tatauma, that also if I do have to bring the general in, then each of the leaders of each of those groups will go to prison. We've been guaranteed that because the only time he would come in is at a moment's notice that there was non-compliance. Okay? As soon as he gets non-compliance, a general like this is the top general of the whole of the military right across Great Britain. So he's the top of the tops, you don't want to mess with a guy like that. So although it was me that agreed to bring this in and push for it, we all the top two kind of lines in the country, we all gave in our agreements, and then he was brought in. And he just so happened to be in the country, and so we've applied that. And if he has to come in, he's going to be one upset man. Okay? Because non-compliance is not what he expects from people who have been served orders of this kind. Okay? This is like being served orders of the king, except it's come through us. and through the power of our alliances and the authority of our alliances with the kingships of Great Britain. Okay? And they are still upheld by King Charles today. So we have that great mana from within Moai, and then that authority and mana within that partnership, within that alliance, comes all the way down through the lines, of course, of Te Awa, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, Māmoe, and of course Moriori. Okay, so those are our senior lines. Of course there's lots of disarray and disunity in the lines after Moriori. Okay, so that's Awa, Tūhoe, some of the others, I guess. I don't think Te Arawa's being that disunified. I don't think Waikato is, but there's a lot of take going on between Waikato and the Moriori, the Maori and Whātua, of course, at the moment. So there's some causes for division there. But the biggest divisions are Awa, Tūhoe. Te Atiawa Nui no Runga Te Rangi actually seems fine. They seem to be fine at the moment. So funny that the most junior would see the sense in coalescing and being in agreement with the most senior of the country, including Moai Hapu Iwi, Te Awa Hapu Iwi, Tahumaakaakanuimatua Hapu Iwi, including Tutura te Matua Hapu Ureta Rewa Whānauri, Māmoe Hapu Iwi Whānauri, and of course Moriori Hapu Iwi, because we at Tautaumā we have all the makings at Tautaumā of a very powerful and unified tūturu group of nations and states and tūturu peoples from right throughout the country. If we could have the Awa, the Tūhoe and others unify as well within themselves and also unify with us, because of course there's no cause for them to be in disarray or within disunity, disharmony with us, because we've got everything right. There's nothing wrong with our lead, there's nothing wrong with our tūākana authority in the country, and of course the stance and the positioning of each of our hapu iwi e Tautaumā is actually quite correct and quite accurate. So there should be no, we're all tau ko hatu, and so there should be no disharmony in the ranks, unless of course you're just upset at the fact that things have changed from what you thought they were. Now, if they have, and there's ample proof and evidence of those changes needing to be so, then you cannot argue against that. And if you've got no evidence against that in opposition, then there's no need for you to be disunified from us, separate from us. Okay? So to be in disarray in this way is quite incorrect. To be e harai te tika, e harai te tika, e harai te mea i runga i te tika, e mea tiana ni, e tatau mā, koutou awa, koutou tūhoe mā, e koutou kai te he, tō koutou tū, tō koutou noho i te motu, ia tātou mātou katoa kai te he tō koutou noho. Yeah, there's no need for us to be in disarray, except for the inability for some to accept that even though this is different to what you saw before and to what you understood things to be before, it's correct according to Tao Kohatu, according to Tao Tuturu of our tupuna. We're quite correct. Okay, so those of you in disarray, you might need to accept that or learn to accept that as we go on. Okay, so more on all of that, and of course the whakatapu is gone and we've no need for that anymore, and there's lots of other issues that come up there within our kōrero that need to be discussed along the way from right throughout the update today, that we will get to, and we will make sure that we get to the bottom of, like for instance in my comments last week, to respect the law. Respect the law. And one of my comments were that when we started to break the law, you know, some of the questions I've had were that, oh, you're a lawbreaker too now. I said, well, no. And he said, well, why did you say we? And I said, oh, well, I was referring to us as people of the day, you know, because and my you know, the angle of my phrasing in that would be quite tuturu in that respect, that in making that term, what I was doing is making everybody inclusive to the fact that there's been some law breaking go on amongst our people. That's what I meant. We, as regards those who are lawbreakers, or those that have broken the law, or those that have broken the law and not learned from it, or those that have lost any respect at all for the law. Okay, I actually wasn't meaning myself. But in saying all of that, and to help you to understand even further and more in depth, what I'm talking about there is that once, this is how we thought in Tahumaakaakanuimatua in Te Ao Kohatu. Now once one or two of our people break the law, that's it, we might as well have all broken the law. Okay? So as people break the law, because it was always a matter of unity and harmony within which we operated the law. Everyone was responsible for it. You had your enforcers of the law that were your, and today we still hold our rangatira to account, to uphold the law within our land regions, and our rangatira are the main people for that. And of course the top of our people in terms of upholding the law and enforcing the law is of course the Taiopuru Ariki Mataura, which is myself. So in saying that, you know, I put to you the phrase, when we started to break the law, you know, we let ourselves down, and we did. All those of you out there who are lawbreakers and have no respect for the law. Okay, when you started to do that, that all came down on all the rest of us. That's what I was saying. That's the phrasing I was using. And that would be the correct phrasing in a customary manner of speaking. Sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous. Every time I'm working with this sort of setup, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, so I don't mean to be like that, because actually we're quite happy. And things are quite positive, but if I'm not appearing like that, I will. It's just just the setup I'm having to use today. So hopefully we get through it with a lot less of me looking like that and sounding like that, and more of a flow of kōrero, just like last week. I was so relaxed, so happy, and it's just a pity that we had all that interference there. It's just a pity, because e Tauma, that was probably one of the best kōrero that I've ever given, that kōrero from last week. Just such a pity that, we had people being spiteful last week and trying to cut in on that kōrero. I wish they didn't. That kōrero was actually the best I've ever done, and all the kōrero that I've done right through the last 15 years. However, e Tauma, we're back to the setup, and we're just going to have to put up with it and work with it as best we can. Okay, so that's the update. Let's look at, after that, we've got a lot of different matters to talk about in there, like for instance the position of Tahumaakaakanuimatua as we came through the period of colonisation, and the dire consequences for us of remaining so staunch and against Crown representatives and those people still in the country trying their hardest to keep us under their thumbs and oppressed and repressed and all that sort of thing. We wouldn't listen to that, and it's such a pity, and most of the seniorships were like that, and that's why we all got counted out early. One of the situations I'll talk about today is that within Whakataunga, within that early count out, which was about between 1843 and 1850, being counted out, and then totally counted out by 1912. So that's right over the top of the land court era. Once we were counted out within Whakataunga, at least we still sort of were given a mention. They still sort of knew us, but all of a sudden we were totally reinterpreted as being a part of Kahungunu Rangitane, and that's where all of that right at the beginnings in 2009, where all that conflict started with Kahungunu Rangitane and Whakataunga. Well, that was why, because of that reinterpretation that happened after 1850 and the first land sales in Whakataunga, which is out at Rangi Whakauma. Well, from that Rangi Whakauma sale, you all of a sudden had a total count out of all seniorships in the land. The lid, the nail in the coffin was practically guaranteed once in 1912 everything had basically gone under Kahungunu Rangitane officially, well, unofficially really, because it was false. It was a false organisation you had in the country then, and it was a false organisation we had in Whakataunga. But of course, it didn't take much to brainwash a lot of the Kahungunu people from 1912, and then to re-brainwash over the years, and recolonise by Tūhoe again in the 80s and 90s, of course, and to be totally brainwashed to come up against us who are not. Okay? But luckily we've got to this point, e Tauma. But still, at least in Whakataunga we were given a mention. In Heretaunga Wairua, no mention. We were nobodies. In Heretaunga Wairua we were totally obsolete. We were omitted from everything. And that was because in Heretaunga Wairua, Kahungunu Rangitane thought they were the big chief, thought they owned all the land, and thought they owned all of Whakataunga as well. Of course, they also thought they were the seniorships in the land. which is quite incorrect as well. And so we've had to battle all that over the last 15 years, that total brainwashing by the colonizer of these particular tribes. All of that sort of thing is a part of the kōrero today. We then go on to the Hapu Uretārewa Whānauri, the Uri Whānauri within Heretaunga Wairoa. And of course, then from there, we will derive from there a lot of the concepts and aspects of traditional unity that operated within those forms of tribal groups. And we're going to get back to that, because we're going to get back to the Hapu iwi in a minute. But we will also be able to connect up with the traditional unity, the aspects of traditional unity today in our kōrero on that area as well. Okay, e tatauma. And so once we get to talk around those areas, we'll be talking reo and tikanga as well. Aroha mai, we can't get into the reo of Tahumaakaakanuimatua or the reo of kahu today. We can't confirm any of those today. Still a lot more to check out. Still a lot more we want to make sure of. And we're like that. We keep reviewing our evidence and making sure of our evidence, so that before we actually release kōrero, that we are ready and we know that kōrero will never go wrong somewhere down the track. Okay, that's why things are taking a little bit longer than we thought they might. Look, e tatauma, we need to be a little bit more patient there. Te arawa, their reo as well needs to be held back. Whātua, theirs needs to be held back as well. But they've got the reo of their iwi anyway, of the moriori anyway there. Okay, so they're fine there anyway. There's part of their reo. So we can't release those. We can't release waitaha nui, especially. I'll just mention that, because a lot of the main work that we're doing at the moment is around that reo. There are reo of others that we need to have a good look at as well before we release that information. Once we've done a lot of that work through Tahumaakaakanuimatua kahu especially, and once we've done a lot of that through waitaha nui and these other tribes, we know we can start to release a lot of that kōrero, including the kōrero on the reo for Tahupōtiki, which is quite different, by the way, to the reo that they use. So I'll just give you that clue, that the reo that Tahupōtiki are using is not actually theirs originally. So Tuturu, that reo is a reo of a number of groups within their vicinities, within the vicinities of their lands. I'll just give Tahupōtiki that clue. But that reo is not originally theirs. Okay? And no, Te Arawa, it's not Te Arawa as well. It's not Te Arawa either. Okay? So Te Arawa can stop going around trying to assume that, because that's incorrect. That reo that Tahupōtiki use is not Te Arawa. Okay, and there are other reo to consider in the mix. There are about 3 or 4 or 5 even other reo. So we're doing some real thorough checks and using some real scrupulousness to assure the accuracy of tatauma. And this is what we do for everything. We do that for everything. And we even look with laterality. That means to say, pushing the vision that we see with our evidence to as broad a spectrum as we can. That's what laterality is. Okay, laterality is that. Can we do that with this evidence? Can we do that with the concepts that we're working with here. If we can, we're probably on the right track. Okay? Because if you do that, a lot of the time, a lot of your in-depth detail and knowledge matches up. And when you get a match up like that, you probably got the best accuracy you could ever manage. In this space, you've got to use that sort of check and balance, and you've got to use that sort of laterality, that sort of detail, and it's not common practice. But we just know the tūturu ways of our tūpuna. And in fact, a lot of the ways we use are not just Tahumaakaakanuimatua, but they're also Te Kūraia Warua, which is coming up later on as well. Okay, so that's why we can't release those. Rangitāne, their reo is not theirs. We can say that for certain. We can say that for certain. Now, we don't want to talk any more about that because their reo we think we've got right, but we just want to run more checks on that. Tara, of course, they haven't got their own deal, but they did speak kahu. Okay? They did speak kahu. Yeah. Te hika o pāpauma, you're fine, your reo is going to be fine very, very soon to start to bring out as well. Okay, and Waitaha Nui will be fine as well. I'm not sure if we will release Te Arawa yet or Whātua, but we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go, but they're not far away e Tauma. That's why I'm mentioning those, and that's why I mentioned Mua Upoko last week in the north, so that we can eliminate that deal and leave that deal, because that deal that was where that was reinterpreted as a kahungunu deal, and that's not true. Just about every deal they try and say it's kahungunu up in the north, and that's strange. That's really strange, because none of them whakapapa, none of the concepts out of those deal that they did that whakapapa out of kahungunu, none of them. So yeah, a bit of a fair way to go in there. Reo and tikanga, you know, the ways in which we do things, those things that naturally we caused traditional unity to happen. Those are the things we need to be getting back into. And those are the things, those are the qualities of our tūpuna and the concepts of our tūpuna that we work with. That's how we work. That's how we do things in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. The reo that we use, same thing. Same thing. And we never change that. We don't diverge. We might innovate. We might enhance. Okay? Like for instance, I'll give you a little bit of an example of how we might enhance things. Now, let's say for our trust deed, for Tutahu Trust Tahu Investments Limited, our trust deed, when we did up all the rules and regulations, we based everything on the foundations of our Hapu iwi. Now, just before I conclude on all of that, I'll just conclude on why we use the phrase Hapu iwi, quote unquote. Hapu, quote, iwi, unquote. Okay? Why we conclude on that term as a phrase to describe a state or a nation or a tūturu people or a hapu to the fullest extent. Why? Because that was the meaning of that slang word at the time. 1769 to 1790, that was the tūturu meaning of that slang word. That's how they utilised it. To describe a tūturu people, to describe a state, to describe a nation. So you could never be a nation or a state in those times unless you had a structure that we're talking about, a structure that belongs to an iwi, or a hapu iwi, or a hapu that is structured to one of the fullest extent, one that has 8+ hapu uretarewa whānauri. Okay, in other words, or 8+ uretarewa or paramount dynasties. Okay, from each of those Hapu ule tārewa comes their own deo, no te mea rā hoki ki tā mātau titiro ki te ao kōhatu. Me o te kura ia warua ana kōrero, o te kura ia warua ana kōrero, ana wānanga, ana whakaaroa te atu ki te tūturutanga o tātou mātou mātua tūpuna. Ure tārewa are paramount dynasties, and the reo, therefore, kaputa mai, I roto I tērā tūāhuatanga I te paramount dynasty. Kai te pai? Reo were always born out of there. Ngā huatanga katoa hanga mai ai I te reo, pita mai I konana. Okay? Not out of io, matua te kore kāre. Kāre te tika tērā kōrero ki tā te kura ia warua. Kāre te tika hoki ki tā Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Kai te pai? The reo does not begin with io te matua te kore. And we understand that in Tahumaakaakanuimatua because Māori tanga, we talk about te ao Māori, I roto te ao tūturu, I roto te ao kōhatu. Tērā ao. The Māori tanga o tātou mātou mātua tūpuna, we know that Tūhoe has said that's what we called the puehuehutanga I te make nui ko te Māori. Well, kai te he tēnā ki tā mātou. Tā ngā tūākana I te motu kai te he tēnā kōrero. Te puehuehutanga I te kura waka I roto te make nui ki tā mātou ko te make nui tonu. Ko papa tonu ki te make nui tonu, kāre ko te Māori. E harakau te Māori, tēnā e kōrero nana. Te Māori tanga ki tā mātou, puta mai ai I a rangi nui. Rāiwa ko papa hāi wenuku. Puta mai I roto tonu I a rāiwa tahi, tēnā wairua tanga o te Māori. Puta mai I a rangi rāiwa ko papa. Okay, so, Māori tanga to us, he tupua, he atua tonu, he wairua, he tupua tanga. Kai te pai? Ana, he Māori, puta mai, Māori ora, tonu, puta mai, mai anō ai I roto I a rangi rāiwa ko papa. Ana, ka puta mai I roto I tō tēnā, o a rāi wauri. A rāi wa tamariki ngā tuatanga, puta tonu anō ki roto ki a rātau katoa, whiti te kau puta atu. I taua Māori tanga, puta atu ki roto tonu ki a rātau. Ana, ki reira, I te hanganga mai a tāne mahuta, I te tangata, I te kurawaka. Nā, tonu mai anō ai tēnā āhuatanga ki roto ki a tātou mātau, hapu iwi nei. Kai te pai? So, this concept we call Māoritanga came from Rangi and Papa, came through the wairuatanga, the atuatuatanga of Rangi and Papa, and came through all of their uri, all of their 70 plus uri. They had 70 plus children, all atuatuatanga as well. And that same wairua, ka puta mai tonu, puta mai tonu, I roto I tō tēnā, te wairua atuatuatanga I a rātai. Okay? So all of that kōrero, comes with all the kōrero to talk about today of the unifying concepts. Some people have spoken to me and within their questioning over the week, they've talked about Māori. They said, wouldn't one of the unifying concepts for us for traditional unity be being Māori? Because we're all Māori, aren't we? And I refused. I said, I refuse to agree to that. And I'll tell you why. It's because this concept, Māoritanga, is a spiritual concept. Not only that, it's an atuatuatanga. Okay, so if we're going to be kake like that and say, oh, we all have that, he atua no tātai. He wairua atua, he tupua, hau tupua tonu hoki no tātai. Then he kake tērā, because Māoritanga, actually in its spiritual form, in its purest form, comes from rangi and papa. That's what I'm saying. And from rangi and papa through to all their children, they had 70 plus children, all atuatuatanga as well. And Māoritanga became fused. I mean, for any mother and father, you know, all of your characteristics, your traits come through your children, you know. Same thing happened. But that didn't make anybody Māori. That was a spiritual part of us, a very significant but spiritual part of us. But that didn't make us Māori people. We're very super tribal. And I've said that so many times, and it's that super tribal aspect of us that became the focal aspect, not the actual wairuatanga, not the actual Māoritanga within our wairua. Okay? Though we had that, that wasn't a race of people. The whole of the environment had that. Okay, because remember, all of the atuatuatanga became the whole of our environment. Okay? Alright, and so, yeah, and saying we're Māori like them, well, he teina tonu ke hoki no tātai. Kia rā tau katoa, o roto te pūtai ao, o roto te moana, te tai moana, moana tai poporo, moana tai hohoro teika, e rā tūāhuatanga katoa, you know, they were tūākana. So how can we be the same as them? How can we, tēnā Māoritanga, you know, they're more, they're always going to be stronger within that aspect of things, within that spirituality, than any of us. But we can get to use those concepts and live within those concepts. But that's not what made us a people. What made us a people was our Hapu iwi. And so we come back to that that particular concept, te tatauma. Again, that was the definition of iwi. The hapu form that it was of the most extensive that a hapu could be, which we call a state, or we call a nation, or we call a tūturu people. And in tūturu times, that's the only time we became a tūturu people, with 8+ uretārewa. And usually it took us up to just over 100,000 people. I think the smallest of the hapu iwi that existed in 1769 was about 120 people. Okay, I know Tahumaakaakanuimatua in 1769 was 160,000. Okay, today we're 280,000 plus, so we're quite huge today. Okay, and we have proven all that over and over and over again. And always, right through the last 15 years, we've had these idiots, these idiots arguing that with us, and yeah, they wouldn't know. But we haven't lied, we haven't been wrong, and we are going to more and more as the years go by produce for you publicly the evidence of that being absolutely accurate and absolutely true. Okay, so there we go. That's where Māoritanga actually comes from, e tatauma, according to Te TKIA warua. It's not from Te Makenui, and it certainly is not something that we identify of as a people with. Okay, hea tuatuatanga tira, he wairua hautipua. Okay, he wairua hautipua tua uriuri wha ioio. Okay, All right, and I'll with that note, I'll move on from there into the traditional unity. We were going to talk about Whakataunga there, but I've already basically talked around that, so that's all done. From traditional unity into Te TKIA warua at the Whanganui-a-Orotu. We'll talk about that one. And we've already started on Te TKIA warua, by the way. Our initial meetings have got back together again. We've got a plan together, and we've extended on the Paisi. And now the lands and groups that we need to be talking with, we're going to start to slowly build those out until we've got the full circle and everyone within it, and all the subsets as well. Once we've got all those together, we'll call the big hui, possibly at Carterton Event Centre, and establishment shall begin. The other thing that we have today to finish off is ko huiarau. I just wanted to discuss a little bit. It's because Tahumaakaakanuimatua, so even though we're not operating officially within ko huiarau, we're operating within He Whakaputanga at the moment, and Tahumaakaakanuimatua, because ko huiarau still got a long way to go within its establishments. It still hasn't been handed over officially to the seniorships, but it will be at some time. A lot of its detail, we've been having a good look at things, and still things are not as tuturu as they could be. And that's why understandings within ko huiarau and comprehension within ko huiarau of a lot of the concepts and aspects that are tuturu to ko huiarau are not actually operating properly yet. But structure and form e tātou mā starting to take place for ko huiarau, so that's really, really good. But ko huiarau made such a positive contribution to national governance in the motu in its time in 1815 to 1947, and then of course it ended up under the Kiingitanga from 1858 and the 1860s, and went into recess in 1947. And now, as we've requested, it'll go back to the seniorships, that's us, and Moai Hapu, and I've got a funny feeling Moai Hapu might hand the running of it to us, the te awa, and Tahumaakaakanuimatua Tutura te matua. Okay, I've got a feeling they might do that. But when it does come through e tatauma, what that will mean is that we're going to have to run it in the way and form that we know how, because if anyone understands the tūturutanga of ko huiarau, it's Tahumaakaakanuimatua and te awa. Yeah, we know it so very well. And at the moment it's well off the mark in ko huiarau. So once they have handed it back to us, once it's ready, I mean, it's still got a lot of formulating and structuring to do. And once it gets there and all of our tribes are in there, again, unity is called for in there. The same with all the seniorships in unity, and we've got such a powerful unity at the moment. All the seniorships from Moai Hapu down to Moriori, powerful, very, very powerful. So anything we go into, anything that we take up in the mutu is going to be powerful and strong. Okay. And of course, last of all, I missed out within just after the traditional unity, there's PaeperaKoroutu. We've got the three literal devices still there to get through. Then again, should I leave that for? I might leave it for our next Wairarapa called it. Yeah, I will. Just I've got a funny feeling. As we come up to the hour, I've got a funny feeling that we're going to end up going over time again once we come up to conclusion of the second hour. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get through most of the kōrero. If we've still got time, which I doubt it by the time we get to PaeperaKoroutu even, which is almost at the end there, just before TKIA warua. We know that usually by then our time's nearly up. So if that's the case, we might leave PaeperaKoroutu, which would usually be after traditional unity. We might leave it for our next kōrero, which is in 2 weeks' time, for Wairarapa. And of course, hopefully that's the last of our kōrero for Wairarapa. Okay? And we can just focus on Mau Poko, Porirua ki Manawatu, Horo Whenua, Waimarino, Te Tauihu, and Te Whanganui Ōrotu, Te Whanganui Atara. We long to operate more within Te Whanganui Ōrotu, Te Whanganui Atara. But there's always a lot holding us back there. As positive and sure as we are within that area, we're always being held back from there, and there's always more pressing issues around Te Whanganui Ōrotu, Te Whanganui Atara. But we'll get there. We'll get there. And once we can open up within that area and start to physically a lot more organise around all our lands within that region, because we held on to much of our lands there. Also winning the war there, the musket wars, we still won in that area. We held on to the harbour, and we still have all the proof there of our people holding on to Wellington Harbour in victory over the war, over the battle there. And of course all the battles right up to Turanganui we conquered as well, right through Hapu Wairoa, all the way to Porirua ki Manawatu, Horo Whenua, we conquered around those areas as well. Manawatu ki Whanganui, Waimarino, from Whanganui out to Waimarino as well, conquering all around there, and then Te Tauihu and areas of the South Island. Okay? Yeah, all those areas were part of the Musket War period victories of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So through the Musket War period, actually, even though people they raised their voices in triumphant cheer at Ngāpuhi, which is all very well and good, all that's good, and the same for Toa Rangatira, which is all very well and good. And then they said that Te Rauparaha was the nation builder, te mea, all very well and good, but they actually didn't win most of the wars and the battles throughout the Musket War period in the Motu. There was actually Tahumaakaakanuimatua that did the huge majority, okay? And that includes the Whanganui Ōrotu, the Whanganui Atara. So much of our land, though much of it we lost in te Whanganui Ōrotu, te Whanganui Atara, we got no worries with that. But much of it we still held on to, see? And so this is where a lot of Toa Rangatira claims are going to come into question, and we're going to end up battling it out in court somewhere. Unless they fold, which they actually should, because they weren't a Hapu iwi, and they're actually very teina to us as well. So, yeah, they were nowhere near the power and prowess and authority in the Motu of Tahumaakaakanuimatua in that time. And that is why we conquered in most areas. Even amongst our teina, they conquered too. In most areas in the battles against Te Rauparaha and his people. Okay? And most of it was due to their status. There was such a small group. Yes, they had a great ally in Te Atiawa, and Te Atiawa had their moments too, but they had great victories. But Te Atiawa didn't take anywhere near the majority of lands in Wellington area. And Te Whanganui Ōrotu, Te Whanganui Atara, we did. We retained them all. a lot of reasons for that were due to a lot of the Te Atiawa Nui no Runga Te Rangi being strongly allied to us. Okay, because, yeah, we have lots and lots of groups intermarried within Te Atiawa Nui no Runga Te Rangi. Same with Awa. So that lessens a lot of the Awa. Even though they're Hapu iwi, they were a lot less within the wars, within the battles, and within those that took lands in Te Whanganui Ōrotu. They took probably, just under what the Toa Rangatira took. So, yeah, Awa took nowhere near what anyone else took. And then there was Toa Rangatira, and then Te Atiawa, and then us. We retained most of the land right throughout those areas. Okay, and so, but they're still a biggie. But yeah, we've still got other take to take care of e Tautaumā as we've come past the hour there. E tatau, yeah, so if we don't get time for PaeperaKoroutu and to finish off those literary devices, e Tautaumā, to give us that real good, crisp and clear picture of exactly what the images and the truths and the facts and the evidence on all of the facts and truths of the PaeperaKoroutu that we need to portray in te reo. We can do that with such devices and such literary forms that help us capture the true meanings, the true definitions. And that's what you would get with the use of the Hebrew Bible and the Greek Bible. We're going to use those quite rigidly, in fact, over all of them. I've become used to the NKJV. I've been reading a lot of the other Bible versions. I also like the NASB, but I've started to really draw to the NKJV. And yeah, that's probably become, in terms of formal leo and academic language and yeah, that type of language, e Tautaumā, I've probably started to develop a form of, well, within my language development and written development, a form of academic language that is something like the language within the NKJV. So, yeah, very, very happy to notice that, very, very, yeah, humbled at that, e Tautaumā, and also looking forward to more and more reading. I'm through my first reading ever of the PaeperaKoroutu, and I am well into my second reading. I'm in Genesis 15. That's what I'm up to at the moment. So we're in a lot of the kōrero around Abram, Abimelech, Melchizedek, all those people. And we're talking Abraham and the promises to Abraham. Amazing. You know, already I'm just spellbound at my ability now to understand the PaeperaKoroutu. I'm just spellbound. And I'm looking forward to continuing that and completing my second reading. Then, of course, I'll get on to a third reading, and continue to read the PaeperaKoroutu. But yeah, if we run out of time, which we should, PaeperaKoroutu will say for 2 weeks' time, within which time, aroha mai, within which timing, e Tautaumā, we hope to have the news for you of the settlement complete, of Wairarapataradua complete, and our organisation around from that time to go and meet with the kahunu rangitane of Heretaunga Wairoa and start the ball rolling up there for us to complete the total settlement of the whole of Whakataunga Wairua there as well. Okay, e tatama. And hopefully we don't have to bring the general in and serve orders, te mea. But yeah, they will only have this next 2 weeks to formulate that and physically conclude that with us, the settlement within Waitarapataratua e Tatama. If they don't, we'll bring that general in right on that day. The day that we come back together for the kōrero of Waitarapataratua. I hope they've got it done, because we don't actually feel we should be talking around Waitarapataratua anymore, because really it's done. It's done. We've already settled, we're just waiting for them to get on with it. E tatama, and so we've come to a really, really special time for us. It's a really special time for us, because we, e tatauma, we don't envisage that this, at this point in time, we don't envisage that this should change, and that the lack of opposition to our total Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlement under us, under Y225, under my lead officially, and my lead representation taking us forward in that particular settlement. We will be looking for the same in Whakataunga Wairua, total ownership of the settlement. If we don't get that, we'll have to bring the general in. Simple as that. We don't want any mucking around in Whakataunga Wairua either. Okay, once we can get that, it's done. Concluded, finished. Okay? And so, e tatama, yeah, a really, really significant and really, really special time. Yeah. And a special time, yeah, talking about ko huiarau, talking about our own runanga Hapu, our own Congress as well. The ko huiarau Congress is just as special to all of us, but that's a national Congress. Our runanga Hapu is our tribal Congress. They're two very, very important areas of governance for us at the moment, and ones where we're starting to discuss a lot of the take around the world that affect us globally, and the importance of those to us at the moment. Our whanaunga in West Asia there, yeah, once they go into Rafah there and finish the job, yeah, they've still got the hostages to think about and the deal there. So we hear our thoughts are with them, and all our prayers are with them, and prayers for victory over the Hamas, and of course over Iran if that has to be the case, and all the allies as well, and with them there. There's great organisation going on. All our prayers remain with them as well. So they've become the talk of Congress at the moment. We've just started to share all of that kōrero with the National Congress as well. We can't wait for the seniorships to take over ko huiarau, or the National Congress, where we can get things like this moving along. Of course, we're already, the seniorships of the Hapu iwi of the country are already working with our military bases in the world. So, and ko huiarau was the central Congress that operated the military bases. Well, we now actually do that, the seniorships, and we're doing that under the banner of Whakataunga and under its auspices at the moment. So, yeah, can't wait for ko huiarau to get in on the act there. But e tatauma, today it's all about Whakataunga Wairua and our organisation right through there. Once we get officially the settlement in our hands, everything else should just fall into place in here taunga wairoa. And things will happen pretty much in quick concession there. The process should happen pretty quickly for what needs to happen for us going forward to ensure that we continue to advance in this direction within Tahumaakaakanuimatua. We're the only leadership, and my leadership of Tahumaakaakanuimatua through these times is the only leadership that can actually work all of that, do all of that, and complete all of that, and conclude on everything we need to within the next 3 to 5 years successfully. Okay, e tatauma. So just waiting on that concluding moment there in Wairarapa over the next couple of weeks. No need to worry about the whakatapu tonight. There won't be any whakatapu over here taunga wairoa tonight at Turukipo. If you're waiting for it at midnight tonight, kareko, there won't be any whakatapu at all at Turukipo or midnight tonight. So, yeah, e tatauma, everything's all clear, been given the all clear, and everything is ready to go. We're just waiting for Wairarapa to hand over the settlement and comply with the orders, and then it's away we go. We'll wrap up the settlement there, obtain everything we need to do, get organised in Wairarapa, get all our people in place, take away all of these kahungurangitane people who have been put in place by their particular regime. Yeah, not befitting within Tahumaakaakanuimatua, nowhere near the strength, nowhere near the authority, nowhere near the mana, nowhere near the establishment of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So everything will go straight under Tahumaakaakanuimatua control, and all the steps that need to be taken will soon be they'll soon be ordered by the Tahumaakaakanuimatua through governance, through top governance, and supported with top governance, and all the groups revolved around all of that, and all of the people revolved around all of that, and all those hapu on the ground. Okay, we will get full support for every step, or a majority support. What I'm hoping for is unanimous support, and very, very quickly. Why? Because we want to be not just seen to be working in unity within Tahumaakaakanuimatua very, very early in the piece, or we're going to get very angry with these groups that have just come back. If it takes us longer than we should, then we're going to take it that they are just returning to make more trouble. The less of the trouble, the better it is for them. We've got ways anyway of assuring that we don't get too much trouble anyway along the way. And all those steps will be taken by Tahumaakaakanuimatua anyway. And once done in Wairarapa, in fact, they'll probably both be done at the same time. Wairarapa will be still concluding, and Here Taunga Wairoa, no doubt, will be still working through all of their advancements and steps that they need to take to get organised around the Tahumaakaakanuimatua Tutura operations and organisation that we need to work within once we've taken over officially. Okay, e tatauma? Sounds cool, eh? Sounds cool, because we're actually getting back to Tutura. We're getting back to how things should be. And we're getting back. But just remember, you've got to be tolerant, you've got to be patient, and you've got to be humble, e tatauma. Especially if you're teina. Teina I nama. Especially if you're teina. When you're given instruction, or when you've given order, you make sure you follow that instruction and follow that order, and do not question too often, or we're going to get upset. because everything that we move to do will be exactly what, accurately, precisely, and exactly what you need to be doing. In order for growth to take place over the next 3 to 5 years, initially, and that's only initially, you will need to do what you're told. And you will need, like I've been saying, to know when to fold. Okay, Tautama, and those, like I've said before, the work doesn't end there at settlement. It actually begins. Okay, the work begins at settlement. So much more to do than you actually think. We might have done a whole lot, we might have achieved a whole lot, but that's nothing compared to what's to come. Okay? E tatauma, make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready. Okay? And let's not forget, as parts of the most junior kahunu rangitane, when you do return, you've got all these other groups, seniorships to get through before you even get, what you want to say and heard. Yeah, okay, you might get a say, but that doesn't mean to say that's success. If you can't get success past all the other senior lines, you're out of luck to get that success on any official level, and especially at top governance level, where we always hear all your kōrero. So don't you worry about that. We won't not hear you. Okay? We won't not hear you. But politically, if you understand super tribal politics, politically, that's really how it's going to work. All those that are senior to you are going to have a say first. That's how it works. You know that. Okay? And we work within God first, and so, e tatauma, He will have the first and the last say. Okay? The Lord and our ancient tuakana, and then we might get a say. Is that understood? E tatauma. Then we might get a say. And then the seniors before you, and then you. Okay, you guys are at the end of the line. Please humble yourselves. Please do as you're told. Please learn to follow instruction, else you're going to go wrong somewhere along the line. Okay? Alright, and we're just trying to make things as comfortable and as secure as can be for you, and as possible. Okay? And so those are the, take my word for it, take my advice, I assure you. Take my advice. They are the best ways to get through all this with the minimum of fuss. Okay? And as we go, everything pertaining to our hapu iwi will come to your understanding so comprehensively. E tatauma, you will thank us in the next 20 years' time. And I'll be looking forward to all those, and I'll be appreciating and valuing every one of those mihi. E tatauma. Everyone. And I will frame and make sure they're all written up, all those mihi e tatauma. Because I know that's what you will do. And I know that's how things will go down. If we move within all these things, within our tribal unity that we know we can achieve customarily, and when we do things properly, in that case, when we've done things properly and thoroughly, That's how we do them. We do them customarily. That's why we operate this way. That's why we're so thorough. That's why we're so accurate. That's why we're so precise. Okay? So learn that. Learn those things. Learn to move in the same way we do. Learn to take instruction. Learn to follow instruction. And be obedient and humble at the right times. E tatauma. Okay? Kaitipai. Okay? And then our hapu iwi will happily continue to grow and re-emerge through the times, through the modern times. And of course I've just spoken about a lot of the innovative and a lot of the enhancements also in there that we have, talking about a lot of the ways we're going to be organised, the changeover of entity running and operating, a lot of the people that are in, like for instance Wairarapa Moana, you'll have a whole brand new setup in there. You won't have the same setup. Okay? Things like that. Enhancements like that. Though we have a tūturu setup we are going to put into there, enhancements like that, like the changeover, the structures, the forms, and all of the law piled on in there to formulate a massive structure that will hold everything together in a modern sense, is what we're talking about. It's those sorts of advancements and enhancements that we're talking about, where the modern law of today, like I was talking about with our rules and regulations, our deed of rules, e tatauma, all of our tūturutanga is enhanced by modern law. We've got all this modern law following on from adding to all those laws. Oh, so if this happens, then this can happen. If this happens, this person cannot go to jail. This person cannot collect 200. All those sorts of things. How do we do that in the modern day? Where does tikanga, tika and kawa stand within the operation of such laws that evolved from tūturu law? Okay? Law enhancements are probably most of what we have. Okay? Where even though our tūturu law applies, actually, e tatauma, you can still be locked up. Tūturu law can have you serve time outside of prison, but e tatauma, enhancements would have you know that at any point in time, if that should be the wrong punishment for you and it doesn't apply because you do not comply with your orders through that punishment, then in you go. Right through that time you will have all your karakia shut down, positive karakia shut down, and you will have one of the karakia of the top order of the iwi placed over the top of you, and you will be imprisoned in that fashion. If you are not successful in that, maka atu a koe, whiu atu koe, ki te hinaki, ki te here. Okay? And things like that. But I know a lot of our people, they're warm to this way of operating the law because it's totally accustomed and aligned to us and to our culture and to our way of doing things, especially in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And who knows, maybe some of the other hapu iwi will start to do the same thing. And they'll look at our enhancements and say, oh, how can we operate that within our hapu iwi? Awa might come along and ask us how how they can operate that within their hapu iwi, and so we'll help them out there. We'll help them out there. Okay, those sorts of things. That's an enhancement. Why? Because a lot of our old laws, realistically, they can't work today. They can't work in today's arena of law, of justice. You know, it's a totally different ball game today. So we need a lot of these other configurations to help us out, to help make them work. Not disregard them and go on to those laws. No, we're keeping them. And that's what we do in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. We keep our tuturutanga. We just enhance it. We build it up and make it befitting for the day. Okay, that's what we do in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And so we still remain tuturu at the end of the day. Awesome, eh? Awesome. And that's why we use the word hapu iwi. Another enhancement, another innovative idea, where iwi is a slang word for nation, state, or tuturu people. That joined on to the word hapu gives us that reading. So that means I don't have to say like 3 sentences all in a row to describe what we've got there. Hey, it just shortens it to 2 words. Now there's an art to doing things like that. Yeah. There's an art to doing things like that. Being able to use so few words to describe the meaning. Okay? So that's, 3 sentences shortened to 2 words. A hapu iwi. A hapu iwi. Which is the greatest extent to which a hapu could form, structure up, and grow within the customary times of our tupuna. See? That's why I use, a lot of people have asked, isn't iwi isn't that a crown term, and wasn't that used to sort of keep control of us, like the word Māori and stuff like that? Yes, it was. But actually iwi was a slang term of early times. And luckily we have record of that. Okay. So our hapu iwi, we know what that is. We know it has 8 plus uretārewa. That's the structure, the sort of structure we're talking about. Uretārewa, 3 paramounts in a row, a paramount dynasty, where the 3rd is given the power to build out to a new iwi. Who is that new iwi? Ko Moteo. Ko Moteo, ko Tahumaakaakanuimatua, o Tutura, hapu iwi. Okay? And we're the primary iwi of these regions. We also have lands from the top of the north to the bottom of the south, and up the west coast of the south, including Stewart Island and Murihiku, through Milford Sound, through all the sounds there, Fiordland, Temou, right up to Kahurangi National Park. And of course we're going to Te Taitapu and all those areas. Okay? That's the extent of our lands and our mana and our native title right throughout the Motu. Okay? E tatama? So, massive, eh? That's a massive update for us today. And it should help us to get ready for what's to come, e tatama, as we move into just under a half an hour left on this kōrero. E tatama, we can be really, really positive and sure about the way forward, and that our concepts of traditional unity can start to work, can formulate, can start to manifest within the way we operate and the ways in which we are organised in order to formulate that traditional unity that we're so used to at Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay, so moving on into our Hapu Uretārewa Whānau Uri, let's not forget that our top 6 in TakeTaunaha Wairoa goes not just through Rākainui Hapu Uretārewa Whānau Uri and TRKH Hapu Uretārewa Whānau Uri, but also includes within TakeTaunaha Wairoa Māmoe Hapu Iwi Whānau Uri. Okay. And remember, this I've had a lot of questioning on the Māmoe, because a lot of people say, oh, well, because it's whānau iri, it's not an iwi. It's not an iwi. And that's not true. There is a hapu iwi, but it is still whānau uri. That's what the difference is. Okay? When it's hapu iwi, they're definitely, remember, it's 5 to 8 plus, and they've got over 5. See? So we still can call them a hapu iwi. Okay? They're just not a hapu iwi of total extent. That's all. But they're still a hapu iwi. They're just not hapu iwi on its own. They're still hapu iwi whānau uri, which is not full extent, but still a hapu iwi. Okay, so Māmoe is still of that status. Okay? They're still a hapu iwi status. Okay, so in other words, they're not yet a tūturu people. That's what I mean. They're not yet a tūturu people, because they're still totally reliant on the mothership. Ko wai hoki anō ko ia tērā, ko mātai tonu ke. Ko mātai tonu ke hoki o Tahumaakaakanuimatua. That is us, those of the Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay? And so, e tatama, those are where your top 6 are within those 3 different super tribal groupings, and so most of your lead comes through there. At times there will be an alternate lead, like within the lands of Māmoe, Hapu Iwi Whānau Uri. You'll notice a lot of the mana and a lot of the lead being taken by Māmoe a lot of the time. Okay? At one point, I think it was the last kōrero for TeTaiRawhitiAukatiTai, Te OureeEKomao, that I said that in most cases, the reo of Māmoe was probably, in tūturu times, a lot of the most spoken reo in TakeTaunaha Wairoa. And that would be the case. But in those areas and at those times, where Māmoe Hapu Iwi Whānau Uri would take precedence in the lead of most things within the region. Mostly within their own lands, but sometimes being Hapu Iwi can mean that you override certain activities and certain areas of leadership within within provinces. Okay? And that is while we're not in there. Okay, the most senior of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, whilst we're not in there. Okay, those with a hapu iwi status can override in some areas. Okay, and that's why I made that comment. Though the tuakana in the area are Rākainui and Tahumaakaakanuimatua, the hapu iwi is Māmoe. Okay, so see, so mana is in the case of mana tapu especially, is such an interchangeable thing. Okay, he taonga tuku iho, but interchangeable. Okay, and there's lots of different areas where that can happen, where 1 minute you're the power and authority because you're tuakana, and next minute you're not. Even though you're tuakana, the other has a more chiefly status and a more greater authority over proceedings, depending on what it is you're working with, or what it is you're trying to achieve, or whatever operations you're involved with in the region, in the province. Okay, e tatema? Is that sounding all understandable there? I'm hoping so. I've still got my screen on reduced screen, so I don't quite understand how to enlarge it again, but I'm not too worried. E tatema, moving on to the Hapu Uretārewa whānau uri as well. Within those areas where Māmoe are within their own lands, of course they will have total lead throughout those areas. And then sometimes in lands where they are not tuakana, they can still have lead. See? It just depends. I'm trying to think of an example now. One of those examples might be where they have outside visitors, perhaps, let's say, Tina from the north, Māmoe, Tina from the north, the most appropriate to welcome those Tina into the region and into lands at times within the region would possibly be their tuakana. Okay, and that would be a good ploy to utilise in order to get the most peaceful and the most unified procession within the region in terms of getting a process of contact ritual, contact and response ritual happening within the region. Okay, so that's one example, and specifically where the tuakana would hold most of the authority over the proceedings. Okay, because just remember, Rākainui and Tahumaakaakanuimatua, though they're tuakana, they're not necessarily chief or of the most chiefly status in the region. Sometimes it's going to be Māmoe. Okay, even in Rākainui land or Tahumaakaakanuimatua land. Okay, most of the time they will of course take the lead most of the time, but yeah, that's what we mean by initiating. Tuakana have an initiating role. That is, that they perform the most priority componentries and consistencies of aspects and concepts within the whole of the organisation, the traditional organisation of the people. That's the job of tuakana. They set the record straight. They set everyone in motion. The organisation is taken off them. They're the front lead. And then at a certain point, because all the chiefs can come forward, and in most cases chiefs are juniorships, they can let them take their place and let everything move forward. Now and again they might come in and do one of the kōrero, but then most times, or now and again they might, for us, especially because we're God first, they might set that straight, just in case, some people might be a little bit unaware or ignorant still of the practices revolved around there. So tuakana can come in and set the record straight there and make sure everything is followed properly. But whatever the case, their job is in initiating responsibility and obligation and commitment to the people. That's what tuakana do. Okay, that's where the leadership of a tūākana must come first. Okay, so that means to say, whether chief or not, because they are tūākana and they are successful, hey, I roto Tahumaakaakanuimatua, 99% of the time they're the first voice to be heard. Whether it's he reo wahine, he reo kōrero wahine, he reo kōrero tāne rāne, they're usually the first voice. Kai te pai? Ana, ka takoto ai te kawa, ka takoto ai te tikanga, ka takoto ai te tika. E rā tū āhuatanga, te inoi, te kaweo, takoto ai. Okay? Ko rā tau tonu te whai tō mua, I roto I te mea, I roto I te mea, I roto I te mea. Kai te pai? Kai te pai? Yeah, so, yeah, and that should do our kōrero for our hapu uretāre wa whānauri. So long as we get used to those factors, a lot of the questions should dampen down. That's why I wrote down some notes on a lot of those things that people have been questioning. Should dampen down a lot of that questioning, and people should be a lot clearer now on their understandings around those things. Oh. Ai, tatauma. Let's remember traditional unity, and the reo we've already spoken on, tikanga we've already basically spoken on, but traditional unity, respect the law. Because one of the elements of traditional unity is tikanga, tikanga me te kawa, tikanga, tika me te kawa. Okay, that's law and order. Law and order. Respect the law. Our tūpuna were highly respectful of the law. The only lawless people in the country 1769 to 1840 was continually our incoming. Okay, and that was the biggest problem of the time, the lawlessness. And that was what our tūpuna tried to fix up in the country. That's why 1815, the establishment of Kohuiarau happened, and the first government of the country was established, Tutura, from between the alliance of the kingship, I think it was King George VI, and our tūpuna of the time. Okay? And Kohuiarau was established so that we could formulate a 50-50 partnership within the Parliament, where we had a shared power base and shared governance happening within that particular Parliament. Okay? But that lawlessness got worse and worse and worse. And so the incoming people, the Crown representatives, right through, didn't give a stuff. And they ignored the pleas of our tūpuna, who continued to want shared governance, 50-50 partnership, 50-50 power base within Kohuiarau. And the Crown representatives continued consistently to refuse. And then we got Te Tiriti in 1840. Lawlessness continued. A lot of people think that the worst thing that was going on over that time was actually the musket wars. And though that was shocking, and that was a corroding of a huge failure of our law system in the country to contain all the various conflicts that were happening over that time because of that lawlessness, because of the differences in cultural ways of doing things, because of the different debates and conflicts that were going on. Everything exploded into one almighty musket war. Okay, but that wasn't the worst thing that was happening. The lawlessness continued right throughout that period in time, and it carried on. And in fact, that lawlessness hasn't finished for some people. Okay, so although our tupuna were sucked in, they were defrauded by te tiriti and suckered in to think that it was something, it proposed something, it brokered something close to the 50-50 alliance within a 50-50 shared governance power base as within the Kohuiarau Parliament. What it actually fraudulently did was defrauded our people of their sovereignty and power and rights totally. And exactly what the Crown representatives wanted right throughout that whole time, and even amongst all the lawlessness of the incoming, was that 100% power base under them. September of 1840, the New Zealand Crown Corporation was brought in to take everything over and run everything and shut down and repress and oppress and racially ill-treat our tupuna right throughout that time. All of the tūakana in the land were shut down up to 1912. They were shut down. Teina were running pretty much te ao kōhatu by 1920. That's around the First World War. By 1960, we were reported as an extinct super tribal people. How do you like that? How do you like that? First Parliament in the country, 1854, established in Wellington, I do believe, under the Westminster system, the same system we have running today. And you know what? Racial, totally racial. More of the destruction of our people happened right throughout that time. And if the Hun report of 1961 is correct, and it is, because we've checked it, then what you're looking at is an almost genocidal impact upon our super tribal people that happened in this land as a result of the fraudulent deal that was made by Crown representatives in 1840 through te tiriti. And we've got all the proof of how that was done, because the reo is ours. The reo te tiriti, the reo of Whakataunga, ours as well. Mo ai Hapu iwi, te awa Hapu iwi, and Tahumaakaakanuimatua, Hapu iwi. That's whose reo is in te tiriti, and that's how we know how the fraudulence was done. Okay, e tātou mā? Yeah, I knew we'd run out of time. We can almost call time, but I'll take us up to 2 o'clock. We've got just over 10 minutes left. We'll take us up to 2 o'clock. We'll leave PaeperaKoroutu for the Waitarapa, for TeTaiRawhitiAukatitai, for the Hawhau ao mō, Tahawhaua more. And yeah, so we'll do PaeperaKoroutu there. The yeah, te mea nei te TKIA warua. Yeah, TKIA warua is well on the way in Waitarapatara, and te whanganui it shouldn't be too far away. Around about this time next year, or maybe the year after, yeah, kati mataria tira. Of course, that particular aroha mai, that particular establishment of te kuraia warua, the whare wānanga there in te whanganui Aotearoa, will be led and handled by the māmoe of that area, because it will be run by them. Yeah, pretty much māmoe tikanga right through. It'll still be te reo matua o Tahumaakaakanuimatua right through, but you'll hear a lot of the leaderships, utilising also perhaps at times the reo of māmoe a lot from right throughout a lot of their processes, a lot of their operations, te mea. But you'll see at the official time, katu ko rero ana rātau, nā, o taua reo tonu rā, te reo matua o Tahumaakaakanuimatua, te reo taua wā. Taua wā tonu, koe tērā ko taua reo, hai reo ko rero i te iau wawa. Because that's those of the reo above the ground are the three main reo of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. That's in the whole of the region. Okay? So at those official moments, ka tū kōrero ana te tangata, ana. Kia tū kōrero ana, ko taua reo tonu rā, te reo kōrero taua wā tonu. Okay? And so, māmoe will have the run of the kuraia warua there. And so a lot of the establishments around all the kōhanga reo and the kurakai papa, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, the kura iwi, Hapu iwi of Tahumaakaakanuimatua within there, the whare kura of Tahumaakaakanuimatua within there will be all run by māmoe, all named by those tupuna that are prevalent in those areas. And there's six. And I think they'll name areas of the whole of the whare wānanga from that whole six. Within Waitarapatara, there's 12, the whole 12. So everyone will get in there, but especially those specifically from within the lands where it's built. You'll find a lot of their tupuna holding the major names, the primary names of different areas of the school. Like for the kōhanga reo, the very first kōhanga reo of among all the kōhanga reo within te kuraia warua of Waitarapatara, I think the first one is called Te Rongomai Tuara. Yeah, Te Rongomai Tuara. That's named after the wife of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay. I think the very first kura kaipapa Tahumaakaakanuimatua, the very first of them, the kura Hapu iwi, the kura and the whare kura Hapu iwi. I think the kura Hapu iwi is going to be called Iwi Te Rerewa. That's the wife of Moteo and the mother of Kahunu, who was also Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay, she was from Rakainui, from the from the Iraroa and Iraturoto of Rakainui. So she was from the most junior lines of the Rakainui. Okay, so she was junior to the senior of Rakainui. Tahumaakaakanuimatua is senior to her because Tahumaakaakanuimatua comes from the main line, whereas Iwi comes from the most junior lines of Rakainui. Though she was Rakainui. Hapu uretare wa whānauri, okay? Just to give you some examples. A lot of the main tupuna will take the names of different areas of the whare wānanga. So the same thing will happen there. Ko hui arau. We're going to look at some ways of quickening up the process for ko hui arau, getting structured up and formulating into the ko hui arau that we know of renown. This is why we want to continue to support ko hui arau, even though we're operating at the moment outside of ko hui arau. We want to continue to support it. Why? Because it is an element of success for our tupuna in the early times, and a component of success and a very powerful component of governance over the country in its time. 1815 to 1947, it did really, really well. And in fact, we use it in comparison to anything from the from within the Westminster system of Parliament in Wellington, e TakeTaunaha, and we operate it like that. We compare it like that because none of them can compare. None of the outcomes yet would be able to compare with ko hui arau. So that's how important, that's how significant ko hui arau is to us. Not only that, but at a point, the tūākana of the country must take it over. Must take the running of it over. Okay, so we're trying to work with things like that. And as we come to a close, e TakeTaunaha, and we finish on that note, ko hui arau though is looking very, very good, and it's starting to come together. But there's a lot about it that is far from the tūturutanga of our tupuna of those times. Okay, far, far, far from the tūturutanga. But it'll get back to tūturu once it gets back into our hands anyway. Okay, and then we start to build. No, we won't be considering the Westminster system within the Parliament in Wellington. No. The positioning of ko hui arau is tantamount to the success of ko hui arau. And if we position it in Wellington, we probably are going to get moments of failure in there. Okay, positioning is everything. Timing is everything too, but especially positioning. And if we position it in Wellington, and especially in the Parliament we've got there, a total crown set up. Look, e TakeTaunaha, what does that mean? And what has that always meant for us as people of the country? Failure. Failure, total failure. And that's going to happen again if we stay with that system, if we stay with that structure, and we stay with that position in the country. Wellington has always been an area of failure for us, governance-wise. Okay, we say leave ko hui arau in the north and build our own premises in the north, our own parliament buildings in the north. Perhaps building around what we've got up there. Perhaps Waitangi might decide, well, I'm not too sure whether Waitangi would even be appropriate, because then you'd get the Ngāpuhi, claiming everything there as well. And we don't want that to happen, because that's not right. in most cases in the north. Ngā puhi needs to stop doing things like that. Why? Because firstly, they're one of the most junior groups up there. Okay, they can't keep doing that. Can't keep trying to claim everything out to their control or their running or their juniorship. Okay? And so we would not want the same for ko Huiarau in the north, and especially its parliament buildings in the north. One, preferably, that's totally accustomed to our traditional way would be far better for us and positioned in the north. Again, we're not trying to be separatist, we're not being racist either, because we will still operate the 50-50 parliament within ko Huiarau. What we're saying is that history tells us that all our success happened mainly because of our positioning. And in opposition to the Westminster style of government in the country, we actually outdid Westminster. But a lot of that heritage of our tupuna has been blocked out largely. But that will come back once we start operating ko Huiarau, and everyone will learn of the absolutely critical and absolutely vital and priority that governance success is to our country from within ko Huiarau and its successes right throughout the world. Okay? Blocked out by the colonial heritage in the country and establishments in the country. Okay? Aroha mai he tatauma, just a call from Sydney, some of our colleagues from Sydney. And yeah, they'll know that I'm busy anyway. But that's our kōrero for today, eh? Let's hope that very, very soon ko Huiarau gets to the point we need it to get to. Most of the Hapu iwi, I think, support ko Huiarau. We're not actually, we're a little bit disunified, but we know at the end of the day, full support is there. Again, the disunified, the disarray is coming from awa and tūhoe and groups related to them. Okay, again, te atiawa nui no runga te rangi is fine. They're pretty well unified with us through Moriori. And of course, right through the most senior tribes of the country, super tribes and Hapu iwi of the country. Okay, and so with that, I say, Father Lord, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, for the peace of Israel, of our whanaunga and the freeing of our whanaunga there being held hostage by the Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Father Lord, we pray for all our whanaunga throughout the world who are in torment and treacherous times in war and in battle. Battle their battles for them, Lord, and come out the conqueror as you do, and take your victory in all their troubles as well, Father Lord, and all their struggles, and everything that it is to stand up for one's people. Father Lord, we count on you, we lean on you, we need you at all times, even in times of relative peace. We still need you. And so we need you now in these times. We need your help and support. We need you as you will promise, and as you would promise. You will battle and fight our fight for us. And if you are for us, Almighty Father, Yehoria, Tauo, then who? Tell me whosoever should be against us. Mighty Father, I pray and thank you, Lord. Thank Thank you for all your protectives, your shielding, your saving grace, your mercy, and your tender loving care over all our whānau, friends, our hapu iwi, our communities, Lord, from right throughout the country and right throughout the world. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Ka piti hona ka tātai hono ko rātau tērā rātau. Kua huri ki tua atu o te ārai o te mate, kua huri tonu ki tō rātau na akawāhi. Kua huri kē atu, ki roto ki a rātau ngā hapu. Tau atu tonu ki a rātau. Kia te tuki tonu mai te kupu, ko rātau ki a rātau. Ko tātou mā tonu ki a tātou. Te kānuhi ora ki a tātou mā kua. Kai te mihi atu. Tēnā rā tātou. Mauri ora. Ka huri.